When someone asks about your childhood and you suddenly blank, as if the answer is out of reach, not because it was traumatic, not because nothing happened, but because somewhere between the ages of 6 and 16, it feels like 15 chapters went missing. That gap is what we're talking about today. There's a specific experience that happens when childhood ends earlier than it should, and it's rarely dramatic or obvious. It's usually quiet. It might look like cooking meals for your siblings at 10 years old while a parent works double shifts, or becoming the mediator between your parents during their arguments, or learning to read the emotional atmosphere of a room before you ever learn to read full chapter books. This part often goes unnamed. The version of you who had to grow up too fast doesn't vanish. It stays active. It continues to influence how choices are made, even now. Let's make this clearer. Imagine a child, maybe 9 years old, who suddenly becomes the most responsible person in their household, not by choice, by necessity. And something inside them shifts. Psychologists call this parentification, when a child takes on emotional or practical roles meant for adults. But that clinical label doesn't fully capture the experience. It misses the weight of being small while carrying something far bigger than you. Research shows that children in these roles often appear unusually mature, responsible, composed, capable. But this is the key detail. That isn't true maturity, it's adaptation. It's a nervous system that learned to function in crisis mode and treated it as normal. That pattern tends to stay. What felt ordinary to you was often someone else's emergency. And many people who grew up this way notice they become exceptionally good at certain things. Reading emotions. You could tell your parents' mood the moment they walked through the door. Anticipating needs before anyone spoke. Solving problems automatically because not doing so was never an option. And this is where it starts to show up later in life. Those same strengths you developed come with a cost you didn't realize you'd still be paying decades later. Here's what's interesting. People who were forced to grow up early often struggle most with the smallest things. Not the major life crises. Those somehow they handle effortlessly. It's the basics that feel hard. Asking for help, resting without guilt, being playful, carefree. Those states can feel unsafe, almost threatening, because when you learn early that the world doesn't pause for you, that your needs come second, and that stability depends on you keeping everything together, something fundamental gets wired in. You didn't just learn a lesson, you built an entire internal operating system around it, and it's still running. Here's how this often shows up in adulthood. You become the person others turn to during a crisis, the dependable one, the one who always handles things. You're often drawn to people who need help or fixing. And this isn't about a savior complex. It's simpler than that. Being needed feels like love, because it's the only version of love you learn to recognize. Relationships can get complicated. Intimacy feels exposing. Vulnerability was once a risk you couldn't afford. So even now, even when you're safe, even with someone who genuinely cares, there's a part of you that refuses to lower its guard. You may notice a pull toward emotionally unavailable partners. Before you blame yourself, understand this. Unavailable feels familiar. It feels like home. Home was a place where you gave constantly, and receiving was rare. So when someone offers consistency, presence, steady affection, it can feel strangely wrong, uncomfortable, like you're waiting for something to fall apart. There's also the issue of control. Not control in a toxic sense, though it can show up that way at times. This is deeper than that. It's the instinctive need to manage every variable around you. Because unpredictability once meant danger, chaos, everything collapsing. So you plan, you overthink, a lot. You run through countless scenarios before making even small decisions. People might label you as type A, anxious, a perfectionist. What they're really seeing is a child who learned that lowering their guard had consequences. And yes, The exhaustion that comes with this is very real. That deep, bone-level exhaustion that sleep never seems to fix isn't laziness. It isn't weakness either. It's what happens when your nervous system has been running in high gear since childhood. Your body never learned what real rest feels like, because rest didn't feel safe. Rest meant things could fall apart. Here's something that often lands hard. Many people who grew up too fast develop a complicated relationship with success. You achieve things, good things, impressive things, and somehow it never feels like enough. There's always a voice pushing for more, better, faster, prove yourself, because your sense of worth became tied to how useful you were long ago. And the uncomfortable truth is this: the world rewards that pattern. Society tends to value people who matured too early. They're productive, independent, low maintenance. They get things done. But rarely does anyone ask what it costs to become that way. There's another shift that happens too. You become fluent in a language most people never have to learn: the language of emotional labor. You can walk into a tense room and manage it instinctively, diffuse conflict before it fully forms, make everyone else comfortable, even while you're quietly overwhelmed. And the strangest part is that you may not even notice you're doing it anymore. It's automatic, like breathing. Except breathing sustains you. This slowly drains you. You might find yourself surrounded by people, friends, family, co-workers, and still feel completely alone. Not lonely in the obvious sense. Alone in the sense that no one truly sees how much effort it takes to keep everything steady, to keep everyone okay. And asking for that effort to be noticed can feel like failure, like you've broken the one rule you were never supposed to break. So what do you do with all of this? How do you heal from something you're not even sure counts as trauma? Because it wasn't one defining moment, it was hundreds of small ones, being too much and not enough at the same time. The first step is grief, and that may sound dramatic, but it's real. You're grieving the childhood you didn't get, the version of you who could have been messy, needy, irresponsible, and still loved. That child deserved more. Saying that doesn't make you ungrateful. It makes you honest. The second step is harder: learning that being needed is not the same as being valued, that your worth isn't measured by productivity or emotional management. You are not a human doing. You are a human being. And being is enough. You're allowed to rest, to not have answers for once, to fall apart sometimes. You're allowed to receive without earning it first. And maybe most importantly, you're allowed to be a beginner at being taken care of. Because that's what this is. No matter your age, you never truly learned how to let someone else carry the weight. So be patient with yourself as you practice. That child who grew up too fast did something remarkable. They were resourceful, strong, braver than they ever should have had to be. But they don't have to hold everything together anymore. They can rest now. They don't have to run the show. It's safe to let someone else step in. Safe to be lighthearted, even if you're late to it. You've been holding on tightly for a very long time. What would it feel like to finally let go? If this resonated with you, consider subscribing. Your support genuinely means a lot.